around in the world. He's been featured in Forbes magazine, Wall Street Journal, NBC, and many other publications. And now, the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan.
Good morning, everyone. Brand new show this week. All kind of stuff going on. Lots of chaos out there too right now in terms of the war driving the bond market, interest rates. Got a new spike interest rate. Talk about what that is, and it couldn't come at a worse time. We have the spring market hitting right now. Everyone's kind of coming in town, and we have a lot of interesting stuff we'll talk about. I tell you though, we're seeing some resiliency though in the market. Lots of people coming in town, still buying, and we've seen that spring market heat up. And one thing to talk about today is when the next 2 weeks is typically, there's specific 2 days that are the absolute best days statistically to list your property the entire year. And there's lots of studies on this, and it's pretty crazy. It shows 3 main months that are the most busy, most valuable months for home sellers out there. We'll talk about what they are, but I'll give you a surprise. It's March, April, May. And the data is like unbelievable in terms of how different it is. Price sold per property, how much higher it goes, less time on the market, how fast they sell, obviously. And it just shows it in graphs, which is super powerful. So we'll break that number and those numbers down for you, kind of how that works, what that means for home sellers. We'll also break down kind of what's happened in the war, right? It's happened with some chaos in terms of the bond market, how the bond market responded. It's also connected to the 10-year treasury. So it's been wild to kind of watch and see what's happening. We've watched the interest rates bounce around and prices, some buyers out, some buyers still coming in. We also saw some big news this week where a lot of the giants in the industry revised their 2026 outlooks, all of which made it negative to the point where they're saying that home prices will decline in 2026, which is wild. And so we're starting to see some crazy stuff where it's happening. It was like on life support here most recently, and all of a sudden you saw this huge jump when rates got a 5.99. Buyers are coming in super hot, and now that's been basically kind of extinguished in a way for a little bit apart. I will say the numbers have been very impressive, even with the higher rates because of the spring market. And so I'm a little bearish on what we'll see summertime. I do think there's a small window here. If you're a home seller, you want to take advantage of this very, very, very quickly. And that's just my opinion because we are a seasonal marketplace. This is the time statistically that's best for any home seller. We'll break that down. That's the kind of most important data. And thankfully, we're still kind of seeing that overall. We'll break down kind of the big macro market news, what's happening in the industry, what people are saying, what they're doing. A lot of people are switching from being more bullish to bearish, and we'll talk about what that means. Our teams have been crushing through it, though, which has been great. Over 60 homes under contract so far in basically the month of March, which is awesome. With that, we break down some detailed data about Myrtle Beach and kind of what the market did. Last week, we covered the micro market, which was each zip code. We covered one of the shocking facts where Carolina Forest sales were down year over year 36%, which is tremendous in terms of the amount of homes sold. Our investment fund, though, continued to buy stuff. We just closed another property this past week in Conway. We bought everywhere. I bought 2 in Georgetown recently, multiple ones in Myrtle Beach, multiple ones in Conway. Where else? We've been buying North End. So we have this investment fund with millions of dollars looking to buy properties instantly, cash offer. We have 3 main choices for anybody out there. Number one, we call maximum convenience, which is like, all right, you don't have to worry about any showings, any issues. We come buy it, obviously, at a fair price. It's not full market value because there's got to be some margins in there. Usually got to be able to add some type of value, whether it be fix it up, flip, whatever it is. Second thing is maximum speed, which is what we call a quick sale program. Match it up to one of our investors, or we have 100,000, ish buyers that we have out there from all over that we're able to match up either owner occupant or investor to the property very, very quickly. And then we have what we're best at, right, which is maximum value, which is our traditional sales program to get properties sold for the most amount of money with our marketing system. And so very, very powerful. We have some amazing success stories to talk about that today for you. But main goal here is just do everything that we've been doing for 15 plus years in the stations to keep you updated, everything real estate related, to help you make better decisions for your largest assets. And I'll tell you right now is a time with a lot of uncertainty, right? You're feeling that with energy, some of the people with AI, with the war, with some inflation stuff. And so we're seeing stuff all over. And what's crazy, there's certain pockets of the market that are still crushing. High end is still on fire. We've seen lots of people relocate from up north, massive amount of properties, over 2 million. We just saw like almost not a new record, but very close to a new record this past week for a 7-day period of properties over $1 million going to contract. So people are still buying. The seasonality is going to matter this year, I believe, more than ever. And I'll break that down in today's show, so make sure you stay tuned.
For any new listeners, just an update on just who Blake is. It's an amazing story. Industry leaders have dubbed him the real estate whiz kid. Been featured in Forbes, Wall Street Journal, NBC, Realty magazine, and many other national publications. He has been personally endorsed by Sean Hannity and Glenn Beck. One of those by itself is an accomplishment, but all of them together is unprecedented. Last week, we learned a little about how you and your team work and how a good portion of your success has come from the trademark system you have developed to help both buyers and sellers here in our market. Recap quickly for anyone new to the show what those are exactly and a quick overview of how they work, Mike.
Yes, Rick, I appreciate that. And this is really the only reason to do the show still. It's by far the most important part, probably maybe the most boring for any long-time listeners, but we still have people make that mistake. I have a lot of long-term listeners who've listened, who make the mistake and then call us, try to fix the mess. And the unfortunate part about that is there's a group of people who actually make that mistake and it costs them and don't have the opportunity to call us to fix it. And so I just can't preach about this enough because it's so important. And it's by far the number one biggest mistake I see any consumer make anywhere across the board when it comes to real estate. Happened multiple times this week again. And so I made a promise, like I said, when, hey, I don't hear this for a while or feel it for a while, I won't talk about it. And the problem is, and the mistake that consumers make, and you got to think this is the largest asset for most people, even wealthy people, is one of the largest assets. They own multiple properties, right? And so with that, what you have to think about is that they make the mistake of thinking that all agents are the same, just like a commodity. They view agents like corn or wheat, right? Think, oh, they're the same. We just want the cheapest one. And that's the only question we ever get, right? Anybody calls the office, what's your commission? What's your commission? What's your commission? Which is the wrong question. I'm not saying it's not the important question, but it's by far not the first question you want to ask, because the last thing you want to pick is an agent just based on price, right? From the cheapest agent, you can tell how the outcome is going to be, because here's the deal. It's a service-based business. What that means is a long sales cycle, large price, and a lot of emotion, right? Because there's a long sales cycle and the ups and downs on the buy side, ups and downs on the listing side. People are attached to their asset emotionally. It's a very scary purchase for anybody who's buying. People search for properties for months and months, in some cases years, before they buy. And so you have a human who's making sure they handle the elements and execute, and how well they execute determines the outcome. And so just like any doctor, any lawyer, if I've charged their crime, they commit, the last thing I want is a part-time attorney who's tried a few cases, or the last thing I want is the cheapest attorney, right? And I tell this to my team all the time, and to even clients, is like, hey, if I base my decision on anything to buy on the cheapest, the outcome is always going to be bad. So if I want the cheapest BMW Myrtle Beach, and I call around every car dealership and say, I want the cheapest BMW, right? What you cost, and I don't care about anything else, I'm going to leave there with a car that's going to be a limited breakdown, right? If I, for BMW, right? If I want the cheapest lawyer and get charged with a crime, I call around the cheapest lawyer, I'm going to jail. Just hands down, exactly what happens. If I want the cheapest batteries for my kids' toys, guess what? I'm not going to have a good outcome. And so you have to understand, you have to ask the right questions, understand what's the difference, and you really got to focus on value. And so what most people don't realize, when you're selling a property, there's 118 different variables from A to Z. If each one's handled correctly, it puts money in your pocket, property gets sold. Anything handled incorrectly, aka they drop the ball at any point. And that could be anything from pricing strategy. See that a lot lately. They either overprice it and sits there and kind of gets buyers scared, or they underprice it, sells too fast, and they leave money on the table, right? That's something you see happen a lot of the times. And so it could be quality photos. The actual order of the photos makes a big difference. Does the agent actually market the property anywhere else? If they do get leads, how fast they respond to it? How do they negotiate? All these things matter and make or break the home sale. And what most people does, there's 118 of those. And so most agents don't even know what they are. They don't have a system or process in place. They're basically just winging it. Most agents live by and die by the 3 Ps. They promise you the world to get the listing. They'll tell you anything, everything that you want to hear to get the listing, which is typically they say I'm number one or this or that. It's funny, you talk to all of them, they all say they're number one, but the reality is that's usually not the case, right? The second thing they do is they put it into the MLS, the multiple listing service, where all the other realtors can choose from and have buyers. And then third P they do is they just pray that someone else brings a buyer. Meanwhile, they're on the street working with a different client to try to survive in the business. The average agent in our marketplace sells 4 homes per year, 3.6 homes per agent per year. If you take the amount of homes sold divided by the amount of agents, 3.6 homes per agent per year, which is roughly 1 home per quarter. There's not any money to eat with, much less spend in marketing on your behalf, which is why most of them just put MLS and that's it, right? And here's the crazier part. If they're selling 1 home per quarter, how desperate do you think they are when it comes down to negotiation? Are they going to fight hard for your equity? Are they going to really fight hard to negotiate based on data versus their emotions? Probably not, right? Because they're trying to survive. And so and I see it every single day. Our investment fund deals with it every single day. And so the reality is, when I got in the business, I'm like, there's got to be a better way to do this. When I was at Coldwell Banker, great company, my mom and I started there. She was there for like 20 plus years. And I was like, man, there's me and her and 200 other agents. They didn't care about us. We didn't care about them. If anything, they didn't like me to do good. They didn't like when we got listings or sold. It was kind of like, us versus them in a way. And so when I got to the business, there's got to be a better way to align the business. And so what I did was I created a company where people are in alignment. I want a team of specialists where each person specializes in what they do versus a generalist who tries to juggle the balls and do everything. If you look at most agents, you have a bunch of basically generalists who all do everything. And so you have one person, they're working with buyers, working with sellers, they're doing their marketing, they're doing their administrative work, they're doing their contract to close work. They're doing all those things that have to happen just to get a listing, listed and sold. They're also trying to work with buyers at the same time and the sellers. And so what you end up having is the same person at McDonald's in the front register, the draft and french fries at the same time. Very, very inefficient business model, which is why there's a 50% failure rate in terms of homes listed actually getting sold. That's a shocking fact for a lot of people. They don't realize that less than half the properties that get listed don't actually sell when they're on the market for that listing agreement. And so those aren't very good odds. And most of the time, the ones that do sell, the people are not very happy with the outcome. And it comes down to business model. And so what I did, and got a feature in Forbes and Wall Street Journal, I flipped the business model upside down, created a team of specialists where each person specializes in what they do, but I create a system that's proven, repeatable, that manages all those variables from A to Z proactively. We use two main things to do so. The one's technology. We spent massive amounts of money in technology to make sure we can manage every single task proactively. We know who's assigned to it, who has the responsibility to get it done. And then we also back it up with a large team of people where we have inside sales team, an outside sales team, listing specialist, buyer specialist, listing coordinator, closing coordinator, full-time graphic design, full-time photographer, videographer, all in-house, so we can make sure we manage all those variables proactively and we can all work together in unison. And what that does is it creates a massive competitive advantage for our client. That's how we sell properties faster and for more money, and we can be much more efficient on the back end, which allows me to spend more money to acquire clients. And so with us, we have what we call buyers in waiting. Like I mentioned, almost 100,000 buyers in waiting, where they're all over the globe. And we have a sales team that makes 14,000 phone calls per week. Their job is to match up buyers and sellers, which is much more effective than just putting an MLS and letting it sit there. And so if you want to know more how that works, thankfully I put together an amazing documentary. It kind of exposes the industry, pulls back the curtains of how most of the industry works. And you can watch that right now at blakesloan.com. It goes through the whole process, but you definitely owe it to yourself to at least check it out and take a look at it. So you can see the difference in how we work and what makes the industry the way it is. The same thing for buyers out there. Guess what? There's 100 plus variables for buyers out there. If each variable is handled correctly, saves you money, get the property you want. Anything's handled incorrectly, right? AKA drop the ball, it costs you the house you want, or you overpay and it ends up being something that's detrimental to your success. And so the system I designed is called the Unfair Advantage Home Buying System. Each priority access to foreclosures, distress sales, desperate sellers, the absolute best negotiation and purchase price, as well as the home inspection to get you that close table successfully. And the coolest part is we want to be a real estate resource for life. We're not here to sell a house and move on. We get you discounts with different vendors and plumbers, electricians, whatever you need. We'll make sure you're taken care of. If you want to know more about that, reach out to us. Call us 843-808-SOLD. You can also go watch that detailed documentary right now on blakesloan.com. We'll take a quick break. Right back here in a second.
Estate agent in your market that I recommend, Blake Sloan of Sloan Realty Group. Thanks for joining me today. A lot of people may be thinking about selling their home, but they want to make sure they're getting the most money possible. What options do you have available to make selling a home easier?
Hey, Sean. We have 3 unique, innovative options for home sellers right now. First, we have a program for maximum convenience, where I represent a large investment fund with millions of dollars looking to buy homes at a fair price in the Myrtle Beach Grand Trade area. Or we have a program for maximum speed, where I can match your property up with over 100,000 plus active home buyers looking to buy properties here on the Grand Strand. Or 3, maximum value. We have a proven system that'll sell your home twice as fast and up to 5 to 15% more money than traditional methods.
All right, thanks for keeping us up to date. Call the agent that creates the most demand. Call Blake Sloan today at 808-SOLD or online at blakesloan.com. That's blakesloan.com.
Hi, I'm Barbara Corbett. I'm excited to connect with Blake Sloan, the only real estate agent in Myrtle Beach that I recommend. You offer several options to home sales, which really takes away the stress.
That's right. If sellers in a time crunch, we can agree to sell it by a certain date, pay cash for your home, or even rent it.
That's great. And if the seller has a bit more time?
We use our proven marketing plan to sell it by
Work with my friend Blake Sloan and get your home sold on your terms.
Welcome to Blake Sloan radio show. Brand new market update. All kind of crazy stuff happened. I'm telling you, it's been one of the most wild 2 or 3 weeks, highs and lows. I told my wife, like, man, this has been like the most up and down kind of month we've ever seen, right? Rates finally got back down to 5.99. The market starts crushing. Our team puts 24 under contract in 1 week. Buyers are back, and the weather's warming up. People have been nurturing, been talking to up north for 6, 8, 12 months are finally coming in town, and boom, the war hits, right? All of a sudden they're talking about inflation, oil goes up, that affects the bond market affects the interest rates start going up, and that's been a while. Now, we've been very resilient, but at the same time, there's some fear there, there's some issues there, and it's changed a lot of thoughts, at least for the long-term market, and you're seeing a lot of stuff. People all of a sudden started chirping about holes in the housing market, potentially declines, potentially prices declining. And so you're starting to see some of that, which is interesting. And so we'll kind of talk about that and what that means. And so if anything, I've been preparing for this for a very long time in terms of we watch every single number. We track what we call real-time data, which is I call the front windshield numbers. Hey, what's happening real time every single day? If you listen for a long time, I started doing this during COVID-19 because I was spending so much money and there were shutdowns and they wouldn't let people stay in the hotels. If you remember that, and I had to figure out what do we do? And so how do we know like what's happening real time? Most of the data people go by is 2 to 3 months old. So if you go by closed data, which is what the entire industry uses, the problem with that, if it closed last month, right, let's say February, March, it went under contract 30 to 60 days prior to that. In some cases, 90 days prior to that. And so if you're making decisions based off data that's a quarter old, you make big mistakes in business. You can cost you money when you're selling a property, when you're buying a property, or as a business owner. And so we track 2 main things. Number one, the front windshield numbers. How many properties go under contract in the previous 7-day period? And as of today, right now, we're still rocking and rolling pretty good, which is a great testament to the spring market. Like we'd be totally screwed if this was January or December for sure, because there was one of the roughest Februarys and Januarys we've seen in a very long time. And some of the national numbers say of all times it's been tracked, which is crazy. But if you look at the last 7 days, 562 properties under contract with some big money stuff, 2.99 under contract, 2.99 million, 2.75 million, 2.079 million. Big stuff there. 26 properties over $1 million, which is almost a new record. For example, going back to previous week's track, the last 2 highest had 17 million last week, over 1 million. A while back, it was 20 over 1 million. The record that we had was last year in the busiest time of 2025, and it was 29 properties over $1 million. And right now in March, 26 properties over $1 million under contract in the last 7 days, which is amazing. 113 properties over 500,000 under contracts. What that means is you're still seeing a lot of people relocate, right? Relocating from higher price areas, higher average sale price, higher cost of living, typically Northeast. We target them online very, very heavily. New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut. We're seeing a lot of people relocate from California. I've had multiple clients this month from California, which is very, very interesting to kind of see. And so that's been very beneficial for us. We talked on previous shows where the number one state moved to and people actually stay to in the United States by far, which is great news with that. And so that means the market's still rolling. And so what I think if I'm a home seller, I'm doing it sooner rather than later. And you're starting to see a lot of data online where people are getting very, very bearish and talking about that. And I'll kind of talk a little bit more about that in a second. Really quick, I'll recap the closed data, which I feel is almost irrelevant right now because it's such a chaotic time. You want to make sure you're using real-time data. If you close deals last month, if you look at closed sales, they're actually up for resale homes, which is great. 4.9% if you look at year versus year, which is great. If you look at average sale price, it's actually down 1.0% at 485,000. The only thing that worries me is that 3-month trend is down significantly. So for example, December 555, 946, and then it went to January 500, and then February 485. So the last 3 months has dropped, or really two months, 555 all the way down to 485. So that's significant drop, almost $75,000 in average sale price that dropped just in the past couple months. If you look here at median price, it's up 1.3% year versus year, which is great news overall. Months of supply has bumped back up the last couple months. It's at 4.8 months of inventory. It hit a low in December of 4.4 months, January 4.7, and right now 4.8. And so we're moving towards that buyer's market, which is 6 months of inventory. And so I'm just telling you, this is going to be a very, very important time from a seasonality standpoint to get it sold. Like I mentioned, about 50% of properties are getting sold. So if 100 properties get listed, only about 50 actually sell in that time frame. And of the ones that do sell, the average days on market right now is 123 days, which is spiked up tremendously. For example, December is 108, January 120, February 123. So it's trending in the direction where it's taking much, much longer. And part of that These two are the most important numbers for any home seller out there. And this is why you can't just use an average agent. This is why you can't use your friend or a friend's cousin who just got their license. You need somebody who's an absolute beast and who's an expert in what they do, because the average listing on the MLS gets 3.5 showings per listing the entire time it's listed. The average listing agreement being about 6 months, you're getting a showing every other month statistically, which is terrible. That's for a resale home. The problem is, if you look at the data, right, how many showings does it take to get a contract statistically? There's a company we all have to go through anytime we book a showing. It's called Showing Time. Every realtor books their showings through that. It's right inside the MLS, so the data is real. It knows how many times a listing gets showed before it goes pending, and the average amount is 12.4. So you need 4 times the amount of showings that the average listing gets to actually sell. There's your problem. And so you need somebody who has enough marketing dollars, enough expertise, enough traffic to get you to 12.4 showings statistically, assuming that you have good curb appeal. If you have worse curb appeal, it's not great. Guess what? You're going to need more showings. We have some properties that need 40, some that sell within 2 or 3 showings, right? It just depends on that. And obviously our goal as an expert in the business is I want to get that number down. So we help our seller kind of set the property up so we can get it sold in 3 or 4 showings versus the needing of 12.4. And also we drive massive traffic, both online, both with phone calls, with our team making 14,000 phone calls a week to help increase that for you as well. The major other kind of shocker has been condos. Condo market's absolutely been getting hammered the last 12 to 18 months. A lot has to do with insurance, HOA issues, definitely a lot of insurance increases, assessments. And so it kind of scared a lot of buyers. The closed sales, though, it's actually up a teeny bit from last year, up 0.6% at 328 properties sold. The big challenge, though, is median sales price down 12.9%. So you're talking 13%. That's crazy to think about. So if you have a $200,000 condo right now, you're losing overall $26,000 a year in equity, which is crazy, right? So if you think about that, you're losing almost $2,000 a month that you hold on to it in terms of value loss. And so anybody's got a condo out there and you're thinking about selling, you want to do that sooner rather than later. Ideally, I've talked about this recently with some clients and people on my team even. If we look at what's driving that, there's 2 main things. One, insurance challenges, assessments, buyers are scared of that. I don't see a short-term solution to insurance getting handled, meaning that I don't see it getting any better than in the near term. I don't see it going down significantly. I don't see any massive reforms. And so that's a challenge that you're going to run into with that. Number 2 is the economy, right? So people tend to let those things go. They sell them, right? Second homes, investments, things like that. And the third piece here is that a lot of the short-term rental numbers are down significantly across the board. We own a lot of Airbnbs too, and we're seeing the same thing to the tune of 20-30%. And so you're seeing a lot of people get now negative cash flow. They're selling those, and so you're kind of seeing that challenge. But if you're thinking about selling a condo, I would do it much sooner rather than later. I don't see a short-term solution to that. I don't see the economy getting very good anytime in the short term. I would want to make sure I'm kind of getting out of that sooner rather than later. And so that's just something to kind of think about overall for anybody out there just kind of running through that. One of the things too that you're kind of seeing from a value standpoint, I covered a little bit on last week's show, but this is a brand new one too. This just talks about Zillow's got a new forecast out, Redfin new forecast out, the National Association of Realtors put theirs out. All 3 of those, even the most optimistic players, right, have now changed their outlook for 2026 to home price declines. And so that's something that's very interesting. And it comes down to number 1, affordability, number 2, mortgage rates, and number 3, the economy, right? And so that's a major challenge here right now. And some of the big headlines most recently, U.S. bond markets under serious pressure, right? The 10-year note back above 4.4%. The average 30-year mortgage is up to basically higher than that. I think 6.6 we hit at one point this week. 6.62 right now. And some people are seeing quotes in the 7s, which is massive difference. It's a full % different than where it was just about a month ago. And so that's something to keep watching, keep thinking about overall. And you're going to see a lot of people right now kind of pushing online, talking about potential crashes. So if you want to sell, I'm just telling you right now, it is the best time to get that thing teed up. And I'm going to go ahead and just jump to something really quick. Since I got a second, I'm going to get out of my way. One of the things important that we talked about, the data. Right now, spring is when the buyers are most active. That gives to 12 months to the entire nation, gives the 3 busiest months of the year, March, April, May. And says buyer showings are typically the highest during the spring. These months specifically, March, April, May. March has the highest, April has the second highest, May has the third highest. And it talks about spring buyer demand usually leads to more offers. Guess which months get the most offers? March is number 1. Number 2 is June. 3 is May, 4 is April, which is interesting, right, to kind of look at. It says homes typically sell faster in the spring. Guess which months homes sell the fastest for out of all 12 months? March, April, and May. And so that's just something to kind of look at overall when you're talking about that. And so that's a great news with that. But it even breaks down the specific like best days to actually list your property. And it comes down based on the data of when it is. And it typically comes up here next month, which is great news. And it talks about April 13th statistically has been one of the best days for that. And we can kind of help our clients kind of walk them through what that is, and just is based on the data of what's out there. And so if I'm thinking about selling, right now is the time people are coming in town. Easter's when people start getting away from spring break. And everyone we've talked to from up north has been combining their trip with their purchase. And we're still seeing a lot of relocation, people moving into it, which helped us from a real estate market standpoint, being a little more insulated due to basically influx of people moving in. So if you're thinking about selling, I'm just telling you, do it sooner rather than later. A lot of people predicting, and actually just sent this a lot of clients this past week, they're predicting that new list prices are already below 2025 and 2024 list prices. If you look at national data, and Compass, one of the largest companies out there, just came out this past week and said that prices could be back below 2022 prices by summertime. And so what that means is you have a small window. It's always supply and demand, right? If demand goes down, or supply goes up, which we're seeing both of those, price is always a lagging indicator, meaning it comes 2 to 3 months after that. And so you have a small window as demand has declined before prices decline to go ahead and get your property in there and get it sold at a much higher price. And so that's what I'm doing. My own properties. We have some of my flips and investment properties, also advising some of our clients about that. And so if you're thinking about selling, call me. Let's have a conversation about it. I'll send you the exact specific data that I send my clients, which is much more detailed, to help you make the absolute best decision. You can call me right now. I'm in the office hustling all weekend, 843-808-SOLD. One thing that's obviously driving this is interest rates right now. Massive jump, 6.62%, which is huge, sickening to look at. 15-year fixed, 6.14%. 30-year jumbo loan, 6.65%. A 30-year FHA loan, 6.05%. And a 30-year VA loan, 6.07%. And so that's something we're kind of running into. If you're thinking about selling, I would do it sooner rather than later, ideally, especially these next few months. I'm going to skip that last break, if that's cool. That we have just like a couple minutes left. One thing that I still have not done, so that backed up our spend. We spend $100,000 a month in marketing, get from all over the globe. We get tremendous amount of buyers from all over. And one thing makes us different. So we call buyers in waiting. And so I've been putting my money where my mouth is on this show for a very, very long time. And most agents promise you stuff. Say, well, the number one, we have a ridiculous amount of home buyers looking at properties here in the Myrtle Beach, Grand Strand area, anywhere from $250,000 to $4.4 million. If you think about selling, give us a call immediately, 843-808-SOLD right now. 82,619 active home buyers. Again, 82,619 active home buyers. This is our one main site. Right now, I got Marcella from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I got, I can't even say it, I got Tammy Halaja from Woodside, New York. I got Morgantown, North Carolina, Seattle, Washington. Big shout out to Alton and Jenny Lane from Seattle, Washington. Hillsborough, New Jersey. Petersburg, Virginia. Pittsburgh, PA. Columbia, South Carolina. Milton, Ontario. So all over, we have a global reach. And so we have what we call buyers in waiting. When you reach out, we have nearly 100,000 active buyers, but we have a team that matches up buyers and sellers, so we can get so much faster because we've been spending hundreds of thousands of dollars before you ever called us. So if you're thinking about selling, give us a call, 843-808. So really quick success story here. Kim and Will inherited a property from Will's father, who passed away last year. Kim's been going through some medical challenges. And recently decided it was time to move out west to be close to their family. They had no need for a home in Myrtle Beach if they move out west. The home needed a little bit of updating, where Will's father just hadn't updated in a few years. They reached out to multiple investors, found out very quickly they're only paying pennies on the dollar. Thankfully, Kim heard about our guaranteed sold system, reached out, called us. We came, met with them, showed we have hundreds of buyers looking for properties just like theirs in an as-is condition. I designed a custom plan, launched our global marketing blitz, professional photos, virtual walkthrough, drove master traffic, had it under contract within 2 weeks, which is awesome. Also, Matt and Peyton moved back home, recently had a 1-year-old baby, moved back to Virginia for a new job and be closer to family. We came in, he saw 1,000 plus 5-star reviews on Google, reached out, had it sold in less than 2 weeks. Reach out, give us a call, 843-808-SOLD. We're still hustling. We'll see you back here same time next week.